Okay, it's 7 o'clock and I'd like to call today's meeting to order. It's October 12th, 2021, and this is the last council meeting of this term. So we have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? Okay, motion to accept, please. Councillor Brown, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Moving on to number 3.1, delegation. We have Nichols Applied Management here with us today. He's going to go through the regional governance structuring study with us, the final report. So Pierce, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. It's nice to see you, many of you again, even though it's on video. I certainly had hoped we'd be doing this in person, but such are the times we live in, I suppose. Thanks very much for the opportunity to walk you through the summary of our findings this evening. I've got a brief presentation, about 10 or so slides. I'll take you through the highlights of the study, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to do my best here to share my screen. Let's hope it works. I get a thumbs up from someone if you can see my screen. Excellent, thank you.
We can see it. We also have the presentation in front of us on our own Surface Pros here.
Oh, great. Good. Okay, so I'll get underway here. Just a quick little roadmap of where we're going. I'm going to start off with a quick overview of what the study was intended to do, a summary of findings, and then we'll discuss next steps. So as many of you know, Nichols and ISL Engineering were hired to undertake the regional governance study on behalf of the 3 participating municipalities. A steering committee comprised of the mayors of the village and town, the county reeve, and councillors and alternates from each municipality was formed to provide direction and give advice to the consulting team with respect to the delivery of the study. What you see in front of you here is a quick timeline of the study to give you a general sense of how things unfolded. Now, we wanted this to be a citizen-driven piece where the public had ample opportunity to provide input into the study. And so we began the study with a first round of engagement. And this was really about us going out to residents of the 3 municipalities to understand what areas they would like us to focus on, what scenarios they might like us to explore in addition to what was defined in the RFP. We went through that engagement in, I believe, February, and the summary is delivered in April of 2021. Preliminary findings for the study were provided towards the end of May, and a draft report was provided right at the end of May of 2021. We then did a little bit of refinement to the study and provided a final draft on June 15th. And once everyone was comfortable with the report, we went back out to the community, to share with them what we learned and to get feedback on the recommendations from the report. That engagement took place in July and August, and then we shared a final document with the 3 municipalities in the middle of September of this year. Quick summary of the first round of engagement. So what tools did we use? Well, we had a project website that folks could go to learn a little bit about the impetus for the study, who was doing the work, scope of the project, and so on. Fairly popular website in the context of this kind of work. We had 1,500 unique visitors to the end of June. There was also a virtual open house. So this was sort of in place of an actual open house in the age of COVID, where folks could come and see the equivalent of poster boards and get some information about what was going on. There was also a survey, so an online and paper survey that folks could respond to provide input on the scope and so on. And we had an online learning session in February. Where we had about 31 folks show up and ask questions. Quick overview of the outcome of that first round of engagement. Generally, residents provided input on what's working or not or what was working or not working, and ideas to improve. And also provide some considerations for inclusion of some of the options that we were looking at. Some also felt the need to share some information with us about the municipalities. Some of the key themes that came out of that first round of engagement, generally speaking, and this came through loud and clear, there was a concern with respect to the state of intermunicipal relationships and a desire for folks to see improved collaboration between the 3 communities. There were some concerns expressed regarding the duplication of services and concerns regarding inefficiencies. There was also a desire amongst some residents to really increase awareness of the project throughout the population so that everyone would have the opportunity to engage in the process. There was a keen interest, generally speaking, in the potential benefits and impacts of the different regional governance structures. So the information provided in the study is very much a response to the public engagement, discussions with members of council and senior management teams, as well as what was defined in the RFP. The 5 governance scenarios, if you will, that we explored are there on the screen in front of us. One was the status quo, everything stays the same. The second was an amalgamation of all 3 municipalities to a single new municipality. Third option we explored was the amalgamation of the county and the town. The fourth was the amalgamation of the village and the county. And the fifth was the dissolution of the village. Now that 5th scenario was included really to help us understand perhaps an eventuality that's likely to manifest down the road. As I trust you know from reading every single word and every paragraph of that report, the village of Caroline has a considerable infrastructure deficit, and it's not likely something they can overcome in the near term. And our view is that dissolution is likely in the cards for the village if nothing is done. And so we contemplated that eventuality as well. So what are our key findings? Well, the county and the town are viable as individual municipalities. The town has a more favorable assessment split, so res, non-res, than the average for towns across Alberta. And the town has utilized just 16% of its allowable debt limit. Average across the province for similar municipalities is about 32%. So those are 2 pretty good indicators of financial sustainability. Of course, others are summarized in the report. The expectations of residents with regards to taxation and service levels in the town and county are profoundly different. Whereas the county and the village, residents there, the expectations are more so aligned. And that was, I think, a key feature or a key finding that we made. Also, over the course of the study, the county and town recommitted to regional collaboration, which addressed a number of items in the study itself, in terms of how regional collaboration might play out going forward. The preferred option coming out of the study, or our recommendation, was that there be an amalgamation between the county and the village, with continued regional collaboration between the town and its newish neighbor. This was the most supported alternative in the second round of engagement as well. It's our view that this will likely be the most beneficial option to the region. The amalgamation of the county and the village may well lead to financial benefit to the town, as the village doesn't currently pay a proportionate amount for some shared expenses. In some cases, the county, and in some cases, the county and the town contribute more than they might otherwise in order to help the village along. And so if we see the village become become part of the county and as a financially sustainable entity, it might be that benefit does arise to the town as a result of that. And the town will also maintain its autonomy while also realizing efficiencies from regional collaboration. So our view is that the preferred option really does provide benefit to all 3 municipalities. Once we came up with this recommendation, we then went out for a second round of engagement to share our findings with folks. And what we see on the screen now is, again, a summary of that second round of engagement. So what tools do we use? Once again, we have the project website that was updated and shared with folks. Again, almost 2,000 unique visitors in early September. So nice to see a good amount of traffic. There were 4 in-person information sessions that were conducted throughout the region to share our findings out with folks and collect feedback. There was one in Caroline, there's one in Rocky Mountain House, and then one in Nordegg and Leslieville. And they were reasonably well attended, apart from Leslieville, where I think 3 folks show up. There was also a survey that was available to people, both online and a hard copy, paper as well, that was fielded from the end of July to the end of August, roughly. There was about 30 responses collected through that survey. some key themes in that round of engagement. A number of folks agreed that the amalgamation of the village and county had the potential to have positive impacts by reducing any duplication of service and making operations more cost effective. That's certainly the perspective of the public. I would say that the primary benefit is really more improving the financial sustainability of the village itself. There were concerns in the communities about how the amalgamation could affect the communities themselves in the longer term. I'm speaking now mostly of residents of the village. There's definitely some concern that, hey, if we become part of the county, what does that do to the look and feel of our community? And of course, there were also some respondents who were concerned about the impacts on taxation, service levels, and job security in the village as a result of the amalgamation. These themes are all addressed in the report in more detail. The Coles notes here, and I recognize, I'm not speaking to the county or village, but the Coles notes is the village represents a very small financial burden to the county, and that concerns with respect to taxation or service levels or should not be terribly troubling. Our view is that there'd be a minimal financial impact. And on the job security side of things, typically in an amalgamation, you see any employment reductions coming as a result of attrition or retirement, more so than layoffs. I realize that I perhaps should have prefaced my discussion of the preferred option by noting that an amalgamation is a negotiated process. And so when we went through our report in this full study, we did our very best to illustrate orders of magnitude and directional changes and potential outcomes and so on and so forth. But an amalgamation really is two municipalities sitting down and coming to an agreement on every single item before moving forward as a new entity. And so there are key themes or concerns noted throughout the document, concerns of residents, for example, that need to be front of mind when the municipalities do go through this process. So the next steps, well, the municipalities are free to move forward, in any way that they like. Certainly this report is a set of observations and recommendations. It's not binding on any one municipality. There are steps laid out in the document in terms of how one might implement the preferred option. They're right out of the MGA. And although it doesn't impact the town directly, you should be aware that this is an amalgamation is considerable work, long negotiated process, and it will likely span several. Likely transition committees will need to be formed, resources will need to be spent, perhaps an outside or in the form of consultants to move this process forward. So it's something your neighbors, if they choose to move forward, will likely be going through for some time. This isn't something that happens tonight. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No. I guess the one thing that I will say is this has been a very interesting study to read. There's a lot of information in this study, and I keep telling everybody to read it in the all municipalities, because it's jam-packed full of information that a lot of people never knew once they read it and make comments on it. So I think it was definitely a good thing to do. So yeah, so I see no other questions, and so I will thank you for your time and your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And before I go, I'd like to say, I realized that I think we left you with 175 some odd pages when you count the appendices. So if at some point in the future you folks find yourself reading this and have questions or need anything, please feel free to pick up the phone. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye now. Okay, we'll move on to number 4.1, to adopt the regular council meetings from October 5th, 2021. Everybody's had a chance to read those. Councillor Phillips.
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of the October 5th meeting.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Move on to 5.1, a delegation. Does anybody have the need for more conversation around that? No. So just looking for motion to accept as presented. Please, Councillor Narang. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. No old business, no new business, correspondence for action. Alberta Transportation invitation to meet at the 2021 AUMA convention. I definitely think that we need to do that. And I think top of the list would be the plans for Highway 11 and where they're planning on stopping and starting that road, starting and stopping, making sure it comes right through Rocky Mountain House.
Yeah, your worship. So administration's recommendations would be the twinning of Highway to Rocky, the twinning of Highway 11 through Rocky Mountain House, and probably the intersection of 11A and 752 would be a good topic because that's a problem intersection that the province has control over.
Absolutely. And they were supposed to already be doing some sort of study on a roundabout there anyways, were they not?
Roundabout was 22 and 11.
No, it was also going to be down at
Was it both?
11A and 752.
Yeah, your worship. So they did, Alberta Transportation did do a study of 5 intersections in town. The one on 11A and 752 was deemed the highest priority. So it's a matter of pushing that with Alberta Transportation to put it on their 3-year capital plan.
Okay, that's great. Does anybody have any other conversations around that or comments around that? Okay, so just a motion then to direct administration to follow up with Alberta Transportation and accept that invitation. That's a long, lengthy resolution. I'm giving Councillor Fraser.
I so move.
You got that? You have it, Dean?
Your
Wordsmith?
worship, going to read it back to you.
Yeah, sure.
Be it resolved that council instructs administration to confirm council's request to a meeting with the Minister of Alberta Transportation Regional Department staff during the 2021 AMA convention in Edmonton, November 17th to 19th, 2021, with the following 3 top priorities: Highway 11 twinning, Highway 11 twinning through the town, and the intersection of Highway 11A and 752.
Thank you. So Councillor Fraser made that motion.
Sure.
Any other conversation around that? Comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Number 9, correspondence for information. So just a motion to accept correspondence for information 9.1, 9.2. Councillor Auld, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Okay, moving on to the action list. Anybody have anything on there they want to bring up? Mr.
Your worship, it's not on the action list, but just to inform council, today we have a signed lease agreement with the medical clinic from all 3 parties.
Nice.
So
Okay,
that's concluded for council. So
good. That's awesome. Thank you. That was a little bit of work to get that going, but worked out good. All right, so just a motion to accept the action list as presented. Councillor Brown, all in favor of that motion? That's carried. Here's your last chance. Any administrative inquiries? Councillor Brown?
No.
Yeah. Does anybody have any notices of motion?
Pretty bold.
Yeah. Seeing none. It is, do we have a closed session? No, I think so. 7:19, and being as everything that is on the agenda has been completed, I will adjourn the meeting.